Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. As we go through life, we create routines. Routines, habits, make things easier. It's just, how do we spend our day? How are we going to use our time? And it's easier if we know this is what we do every day. We get up in the morning and we brush our teeth, and perhaps we have a cup of coffee too, just to wake up and get going. These are just habits. So we first make our habits, but then what happens is our habits shape us. For example, I think many of us get up in the morning and we brush our teeth, and then at the end of the day, we brush our teeth again. And that habit usually keeps our teeth pretty clean, pretty healthy, with not too many cavities. When I was a kid, I didn't brush my teeth as often. My parents would remind me and I wouldn't do it. And then I had a lot of cavities when I was a kid. But I don't remember when it happened, but I started brushing my teeth every day, twice a day. And since that time, I don't believe I've had a cavity during my adult life. But I always remember this one story that my dental hygienist shared with me during a routine cleaning. She talked about a man who had recently come in, and he had not brushed his teeth or gone to the dentist for over 40 years, and he had severe health problems. He was going to lose all his teeth, and he might even die because of the infection he had in his mouth. It was really bad. But each of us, this man and me, had different habits. I had the habit of brushing my teeth twice a day. He had the habit of not brushing his teeth at all. And 20, 30, 40 years later, the results shaped us very differently. Here's another real good example of that. As we go through life, there are stressors. Some of them are external, some of them are in our head. But these are things that bother us, and we will most likely create habits to deal with them because we really don't like to be under stress. It's exhausting, it's tiresome, and it wears us out. And so we develop habits to deal with this stress, things that we do to try to feel better and reduce the stress in our lives. Some of us, for example, might come home as a way to reduce the stress and turn towards food. Food is just a habit that we enjoy, and there's some really good desserts out there, and we think, it will make my stress feel better, so we just come home and have a dessert. It was a long day, we've worked hard, and we deserve it. So we create a habit of rewarding ourselves with food. And it seems reasonable, it's not that big a deal. We're just having a dessert or something snacky once in a while. Well, that once in a while, over years, creates overweightness in us, perhaps diabetes, perhaps a plethora of health problems that got created, that got developed from the habits we started when we were younger. These habits have consequences, good or bad. Someone else, for example, may after the end of a long day go to the gym or go for a walk or do something physical to reduce that stress. They cultivate that habit, they do that habit, and with time they find that their health is much better than perhaps a lot of their friends because now they've developed that habit of working out every day. And that working out every day, taking care of their bodies, shapes them into a good way. So habits are just that, habits, but they do have consequences to them. Our habits shape us. Coming home, having a glass of wine every day for years has a very different look to it 20 years later than coming home and going for a 3-mile walk every night. These two activities have very different consequences to them. For example, I think it's very common when a woman has a child or two to really focus on being the best mother that she can be, and because of that, her self-care, her habits of taking care of herself go to the wayside, and over time, she starts having perhaps health problems or just doesn't feel very good about herself because when she looks in the mirror, she says, "I'm really out of shape." Now, I know another group of women who live nearby me. I don't know them personally, but I see them periodically. These women get together, I'm not sure how often, but they have these strollers that they can run with. And they run with their children in the strollers, and sometimes I see 10 of them, and I've seen as many as 50 of them running together with their babies in their strollers. It's very impressive, and as you can probably guess, they're in pretty good shape. Well, now let's focus on habits for happiness or unhappiness. Again, they come through habits. All day long we're doing things, and usually these things are based on habits. Habits that we've cultivated over many years. For example, There are people that cultivate the habit of seeing the cup half full, and there are people that cultivate the habit of seeing the cup half empty. The one develops a positive, optimistic view of life. The other develops a negative, pessimistic view of life. For example, in life, we have to wait. We have to wait sometimes a long time for things. It's just part of living life. But for some people, when they get in that metaphoric line, they get very upset. They get very angry. They get very irritated. Why doesn't this company hire more people? What's going on here? This is disgusting. I cannot stand this. This is a waste of my time. And you know what? They end up really feeling and being miserable. Now, they're not often aware that that misery is coming from them, but it is. And because of their habit of fighting lines, fighting life, they suffer. Someone who's developed a more positive, optimistic approach to life may say, oh, that silly line again. Well, it's not going to get any quicker if I get upset, so I'm going to perhaps strike up a conversation with the person in line with me, or perhaps I'll get on my phone and call a friend, or maybe I'll listen to a podcast while I'm standing in line, or some good music while I'm standing here. I enjoy that. So they develop habits of dealing with life very differently than the person who gets upset. Because the key of life is we are going to face things that we don't like, that bother us. Now, where habits play a big role is how do we respond to these events? How do we engage with them? For example, most of us, as we go through life, are going to go through heartbreak. Someone we fell in love with, we're hoping to spend our life with, and it didn't work out. Even when we're married to them, sometimes marriages end. But when we face these crises of life, we have habits in place of how to deal with crises. Some of us say, this is really bad. I don't even know if I want to live anymore. There's just too many of these crises. Is it worth it? Some people develop the habit of getting really angry. They think anger is a good way to deal with crises, like a breakup. And some people say, this is just part of life. I've gone through breakups before. I've known other people go through breakups, and often it turns out well. They meet someone else that's better for them, and I may meet someone else that's better for me. And because this person developed a habit of optimism, of hope, of things can turn out well even when it's dark, then they do that. They experience that. They live that way. And they find that their life is far more happier. At the other extreme, the other person may commit suicide through habits. We just develop habits. And the habits can be good for us. The habits can be bad for us. But our habits will shape us. So we have to ask ourselves, what habits are we cultivating every single day? Because our habits shape us. And people that want to develop happiness habits do very specific things. As you probably can imagine, because of what I do, I have met some people that lives are going exquisitely. And it's interesting to me, when I meet people's lives that are going very well, they are doing often the very same thing that I am doing, that other people I know are doing whose lives are going well. Happiness has habits that shape us, but if we don't do them, we're not going to find the happiness we're seeking. Because I think there's a tendency for many of us to think that my habits don't make any difference. The things I'm doing right now really don't matter. If I dive into a Netflix TV series for the next 2 months and watch it over and over again, it won't make any difference. Yes, it will. Everything we do makes a difference. Coming home and having a bottle of wine every day because our father has dementia and it's difficult for us will create a habit, and not a good one. Working really hard to make a lot of money and putting everything else on hold will have consequences to it. Meditating every day, perhaps twice a day, also will have consequences to it. It will create a certain habit. It will shape us, and that shaping in this instance will be good. In the Happiness Podcast, where we're now approaching almost 400 episodes, I talk about a lot of habits we can do that create happiness and peace in our hearts. But we do need to do them. And you know what? We're doing something. We very much are creatures of habit. We just are. So what we have to ask ourselves is, what habits am I doing throughout the day? Because everything matters. And are these habits making my life better? Are they contributing to my overall mental, physical, and spiritual health? Or are they tearing it down, making it a little bit worse? Not overnight. Very few times do we do things that cause drastic change or damage, but subtly they wear on us. That extra dessert every night matters. Not brushing our teeth, going back to my original example, for day after day and month after month matters. It could actually kill us. Our habits are shaping us. What we have to ask ourselves is, what habits am I participating in? And let's do that. Let's watch this week. What do I do throughout the day? What are my habits? Are the habits making myself better? Making me feel good? Like yoga and a salad and being in nature and having good conversations with positive friends? Or am I coming home and watching the news and having a few beers every night, or smoking pot, or spending hours watching television or video games that are violent? These too are habits. But when we notice what we're doing, we can ask ourselves, okay, I get it. My habits are shaping me. What habits am I participating in? And perhaps today, I'm going to start a new habit of coming home and going to the gym, a new habit of spending times with people that are uplifting and really staying away from some of my negative friends. I'm going to create a habit of reading about self-development, learning about how to improve my life instead of watching mindless television or spending hours on our phones with things that are just silly. We are doing something, and whatever we do matters. So we remember this. We first make our habits, and then our habits shape us. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.